रामायण की कहानी मेरे दिल के बहुत करीब है। बचपन में मैं हर दूसरी रात इस कहानी की किताब को पढ़ता था। एंड नॉट टू फॉरगेट द एब्सोल्यूट बेंचमार्क फॉर एनी विजुअल रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ द एपिक 1992's Ramayan, The Legend of Prince Ram. Thank you, Yugosaki, for giving a lot of us our yearly Diwali watch. But more on that later. As if the trailers and the marketing strategies weren't enough, the starting credits of the movie made me more skeptical for what was to come. It covered Ram and Lakshman being trained by Rishi Munis. It covered how Ram and Sita got married and thereafter even how they got exiled. And yet the movie is 3 hours long. Prabhas' intro scene is literally out of a video game. Not one that you'll play on the new PS5. It's one that you'll see on Instagram and download by mistake. There are literal dementors in this scene. I'll be honest, by the looks of this movie, it should never have been a movie in the first place. It should have been a comic or an illustrated book. It has some of the most beautiful stills in recent times, and yet everything in between each such still just lets them down. Ajay Atul's thumping BGM does its best to save the scene and many such others in the movie. But in the end, it's a cold open in the literal sense of the words. Ravan's Lanka also, as seen in the trailers, looks like a future grunge band location. And he even plays the sitar while his fingers bleed to back that up. Before we deep dive, let me just say that it wasn't all terrible, but the negatives far outweighed the positives. Now, credit where credit is due. After having seen the trailers, I, like many others, was dreading the special effects of this movie. But it looks like the time that they took to work on the VFX actually paid off for them. It went from being an amateurish attempt at the Ramayan to a mobile game on the Ramayan. Now, in that time off, if they had also worked on parts of the screenplay and the dialogues, we would have been having a completely different conversation. But here we are. One of the few positives was that even though completely digitally rendered, some of the stills in this movie were beautiful to look at. However, because of the lack of 2D shows, you end up watching this movie in 3D, it's a shame because you will not be able to see shit. The Sita Haran scene that they showed in the most recent trailer is probably the movie's best executed scene. That is, until Kriti Sanon starts floating in the air like she's being exorcised and Saif Ali Khan leaves with her on a dragon. I mean, what are we even watching? Would he have become any less evil if he would have just left on a golden chariot or something? And for everyone wondering where that 500 crore budget went, was it on Ravan? Was it on the Vanar Sena? Was it on the Dementors at the start? No, it was on the dragon. You guys don't realize this right now, but the next season of House of the Dragon has a ready-made blueprint that they can just pick up from this movie. The makers of Adipurush better get a cut. After all, that probably is the best chance of turning a profit for this movie. While some creative choices were pretty decent, most of them just baffled me. I mean, the Ashok Vatika has cherry blossoms for God's sakes. Moreover, this is what some of the dialogues are like. जिसकी जलती है, वो जानता है. कपड़ा भी तेरे बाप का, तेल भी तेरे बाप का, आग भी तेरे बाप की, जलेगी भी तेरे बाप की. I mean, what is going on? Like, मतलब इससे अच्छा तो रोहित शेट्टी के डायलॉग राइटर्स को ही बुला लो ना. ऑडियंस सीटी भी मार लेगी कंफ्यूज हुए बिना. The laziness in creating this world is shocking. Lanka and its residents are basically straight out of the Lord of the Rings. We get an Avengers Assemble moment, a Quicksilver run, and even a Nagina-like snake attack. On top of that, we even get Thor's thunder and Harry Potter's final duel. The influences are obvious and painstakingly so. Their interpretation of Ravan is actually one of the only positives of this movie. He thinks with all 10 of his heads, all of which think differently, and they've managed to visually show us that. Which, if you ask me, is actually pretty cool. It felt like no one other than Saif was even trying. His expressions, his voice, his physicality, his weird strut somehow worked, at least in the scenes that he was in. All Prabhas does, on the other hand, is smile through the movie. Not just him, there is absolutely no expression on Sunny Singh's face at any given point in the movie. The entire purpose of his existence in the movie is to make a statement just to be undercut by what Prabhas has to say 2 seconds later. And therein lies the movie's main problem. What made Yugosaki's rendition so good was that while yes, the entire movie revolves around Ram and was even named after him, each character got their scene. Each character got their due. Even with a runtime of an hour less than that of Adipurush, it packed in so much more, not just story wise, but also emotional depth wise. It made you feel, and that is something Adipurush just could not do. Yugo Saki's Ramayan did not just move from plot point to plot point. The former story was told with the actual intention of covering the larger conflict of good versus evil. Whereas Adipurush just looked like it was made to service Prabhas and his fans. A tiny example of this is that in the former, when Sita Haran takes place, Ram yells and cries in anguish. He swears to take revenge on Ravan. And it is Lakshman who reminds him of the morals that Ram lives by and preaches to others. It is his younger brother that centers him and enables him to fulfill his destiny. However, in this, neither of them say anything. They just look on. Why? Because he's perfect. Doesn't sound like as good of a story, does it? Even in the scene where Sugriv is accepted as king by his Vanar Sena, the Jai Shri Ram BGM constantly reminds you that no matter who the victor, this entire movie only revolves around the titular character, more so Prabhas. And like I said, that is one of the movie's biggest issues, amongst many other smaller ones. There is so much more to unpack, but I'm sure most of you are not even watching this video at this point. So I'm going to leave it there. If you have seen the movie, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. If you haven't, I think you can skip it. Just go watch 1992's movie and you'll be a much happier person. That's it for the review for today. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that jazz. I will see you soon for another review. Till then, take care. Peace.